attend an ultrasound, and I had with me at the time my then 2-year-old, and she was in the scan room with me expecting to see her baby brother or sister on screen, and instead we were met with words, "I'm sorry, there is no heartbeat." There was just nothing. There was clinical information. A definition of a miscarriage is the spontaneous loss of a fetus prior to 20 weeks. That just made me feel awful. And there was nowhere for me to go to who could understand what I was going through, provide any empathy, any validation, any support whatsoever.
Hello and welcome to another Equilibrium show. How are you today? I hope all is well in your world. And today my guest is Sam Payne. Now Sam is the CEO and founder of the Pink Elephant Support Network, which sounds super interesting. I'm looking forward to learning more about that. But for everybody, for the people who don't know you, maybe we can start by just introducing yourself and talking a little bit about your journey, how you came to be the founder of the Pink Elephant Support Network.
Sure. So Pink Elephant Support Network is Australia's first support network for those who are impacted by the very real grief and trauma of pregnancy loss. So I myself went through a journey. We had our first daughter really easy with an annoying couple. We got married and there was a baby literally a year later. I didn't realize how annoying I was until 2 years later when we went to try for another baby. And it wasn't as easy. I had secondary infertility. We had recurrent pregnancy loss. So we could fall pregnant, but we really struggled to get past that 8-week mark. So we had my first miscarriage, which was devastating because we'd had a child already. So we just believed that another pregnancy definitely led to another baby in 9 months' time. And we had what's known as a missed miscarriage. And that's where you attend an ultrasound. And I had with me at the time my then 2-year-old, and she was in the scan room with me expecting to see her baby brother or sister on screen. And instead we were met with words, "I'm sorry, there is no heartbeat." And it literally feels like there's a trapdoor underneath you and it opens up and you just fall. And you leave that appointment and then you follow up with a series of medical appointments, which are managed fairly well. But then there's nothing else afterwards. There's no one there to offer you support, to catch you, to tell you what to do next. And whilst I found that really strange and confronting at the time, typical kind of attitude of get on with this, let's just try again. And it wasn't until I had my second loss, very similar, but that time what was called a natural loss. So I passed that baby alone at home. That I was heartbroken, I was devastated, I was experiencing post-traumatic stress without realizing it. So I was having nightmares, I wasn't sleeping, I had incredible anxiety. And yet again, there was nowhere for me to go to who could understand what I was going through, provide any empathy, any validation, any support whatsoever. So I could find later term loss organizations for stillbirth. And whilst they're amazing, incredible, and very needed, what I struggled with my losses were around 8 weeks. I invalidated my experience. I said, I shouldn't be feeling this bad. Miscarriage is common. This shouldn't happen. But what I noticed was a trend when I started to speak to other women, that they too had very similar feelings to me. And they too felt they deserved more than what they were getting. So we started to run some focus groups, and just to kind of get a group of 6 to 8 women together at one time to talk about their experience of miscarriage. And again, the common narrative was that whilst miscarriage is common, it's massively undersupported, and that women felt that they weren't receiving adequate support from healthcare, from workplaces, from their own communities, from their own family and loved ones. So I saw a gap and I decided that let's set something up. And what I thought would be a Sydney support network, that was 6 years ago now, is now a national support charity that we support thousands of women. We provide online communities where women connect with each other, and that's that piece around somebody else who just gets it, because you can be in a group of your friends and you're that one person out of your group of friends who isn't falling pregnant or is losing her babies, whereas all of your other friends are just having babies, what appears to be really easy. So to have a connection into a group of women who are in the same boat of you, it's magical. We hold such an amazing space for each other. So that's one way we support. Then we also provide resources on our website completely for free, which is again, antidote to that content that was never there for me when I needed it. There was just nothing. There was clinical information. A definition of a miscarriage is a spontaneous loss of a fetus prior to 20 weeks. That just made me feel awful. There was nothing written with love. There was no empathy. There was no, you may or may experience this, your hormones will do this, therefore you'll have this emotional roller coaster to play, consider these. There was no proactive tips in how to support myself. And so what we've tried to create with Pink Elephants is that one central reliable place of information on the topic of miscarriage. And I guess it's working, because this year alone we've had 36,704 people access information through our website.
Wow.
That's incredible to think that it was an idea, and so
No,
we're
that is
actually out there
incredible.
doing
Yeah.
it.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
well done. I mean, golly, it's funny,
Thank
isn't
you.
it, how such a, from pain, what you
Mm.
described, you know, your own loss. So did you have another baby in the end? Did it have a happy ending on that? Before we move into Pink Elephant, what happens? You had two miscarriages.
Yeah. So we did go on. We had a successful pregnancy with my now healthy 4-year-old Johnny. That was, thank you. That was not easy though, and I think that's another part that really needs to be highlighted, and that's part of the work that Pink Elephants does as well, is that I went through 9 excruciating months of anxiety. There's no other way. I was terrified that I would constantly lose that baby. It didn't go away at the magical 12-week mark. And I wasn't offered support by the healthcare system at that point. Pink Elephants was only in its infancy, so we weren't doing pregnancy after loss at that point either. And I actually went on to have a diagnosis of postpartum anxiety with Johnny. I needed therapy, I needed medication to move on from the PTSD of the recurrent pregnancy losses. So yeah, we did go on and have what's called a rainbow baby, which is a baby who's got so much hope. But however, I just want to acknowledge for all those women who might be at that point right now, that just because we get a baby in our arms, firstly, it doesn't remove the love and the grief for the babies that we've lost. Whilst it is heartwarming and beautiful and a moment of celebration, it's also an incredibly difficult journey.
So I haven't heard that term before, a rainbow baby. So that's a baby that, like a miracle baby in some ways.
Yeah, basically it's a baby born after a woman who's gone through a loss of a baby before that. I think it's quite an American term. You're hearing it a lot more over here now, and in the UK as well. There's actually Rainbow Baby Day coming up this Sunday. There'll be a big celebration around that. And rightly so, because those babies are really special, and what the mothers and partners have gone through to get there is incredible as well. So it's a beautiful term, but it doesn't negate the storm that happened before the rainbow, right?
No, absolutely. How common is miscarriage? So you say it's quite common in those kind of early months, but do you have any statistics to show?
So sadly, the World Health Organization, and there was a piece put out this year in the Lancet Journal that estimates 23 million women globally will go through a pregnancy loss each year. And that translates as roughly 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in loss. So a huge number of families will be impacted by miscarriage.
Wow, so that's a huge number. And is it really growing, or is it? Do you know any trends there? Is it
the problem that we have? We've actually just gone through this with the census in Australia. Nobody is collecting the data efficiently enough on miscarriages. So what you find within Australia, local health districts might record the ones that go through the hospital system, but then public health networks look after GPs. So they're 2 separate systems and they don't report into one. So there is no national picture of this. So the way that we work out miscarriage rates is based on a quarter of live birth rates. And that's something that Pink Elephants, we're now starting to lobby for as well, because if we don't evidence things, we don't understand the true scale of the problem. How are we meant to create support pathways for women like myself and our community? So yeah, it's a far larger problem than most people realize, and I think also it's a victim of being silenced for too many decades, for too many years, and where it's been a women's issue, it's therefore been silenced, and therefore there is no support for it. So we're one of the first, well, we are the first national support service.
No, that's wonderful. And I guess one of the other issues is, particularly in those early stages, like no one necessarily knows at 8 weeks that you are pregnant, so you don't have that. So you're going through a kind of silent grief yourself, which is really challenging. So moving on, and we talked about like the workplace and support in terms of the workplace, but what do you do to support women who are going through this at work, and how can employers how can employers support their employees who are going through this loss?
Yeah, sure. So we noticed about 2 years into setting Pink Elephants up that at that point we had the online communities and women were chatting, and we've always taken the approach to work with our community to create services that basically support their needs. And we noticed a gap again, which was workplaces. So we knew that women in our groups were having conversations about, how do I tell my boss that I've had a miscarriage? Is it something I want to tell my boss? I'm scared to tell my boss, or I need some time out. I took a day off for my D&C, which is the medical procedure, but I'm still bleeding and cramping heavily. I'm not comfortable sitting at a desk. I'm still crying every 2 minutes at the drop of a hat, which is really normal. I can't go into work like this. So we were noticing all these common threads come up, and I decided to then do some research and find out what, if any, support was in workplaces. And not unsurprisingly, there was nothing in workplaces specifically for pregnancy loss or even fertility challenges. We even looked at the legislation, and we knew that within Australia, within our Fair Work Act, miscarriage wasn't covered unless it was a loss post 12 weeks with special maternity leave. However, 98% of losses occur prior to 12 weeks. So that was a policy that just had zero impact. So we knew that we needed to look at a lot of different places to drive real change. You need to look at policy, you need to look at resources, and you need to have a clear evidence. So what we've done is we've created a suite of resources that are separate to the information that's on our website for the general community. And that is designed for workplaces to have on their own HR portals. And that content is things like supporting a colleague through a loss. So that if you know that someone on your team has had a loss, you could send that information to the rest of your team so that they're best placed in how to provide validation, empathy, and understanding when that person returns. So we know that then when a woman returns to a workplace or a partner, that they're met with the empathy that they need, and they're not met with comments such as, well, at least it happened early, or wasn't really a baby yet anyway, which still happens. And then we provide other types of training, say in video tutorials for people leaders, which you might have a manager who's never been through a loss themselves, wants to do the right thing, but doesn't know what the right thing is with this topic because it hasn't been spoken about. So we'll talk them through in a 5-minute video tutorial in how you can support an employee through pregnancy loss. And yeah, we designed that program. We went through a pilot in 2019, and we had Commonwealth Bank, we had Minter Ellison and Tabcorp, so really different, diverse clients, and that was intentional. We took them on board. We worked with those three. We held things like panel discussions as well to open up the conversation about this issue so it's less taboo in workplaces. It was received incredibly well. And then in the last, we paused it a bit in 2020 because that was the year of COVID, right? And then this year, I know, we're like, well, no, I'm not saying it again this year. It is not. However, it is. But I think that workplaces are still working differently now. So we've had growth. We've had another 9 clients come on board with that program this year, such as Westpac, PwC, some really large corporates who have noticed, yes, this is an issue, that if 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss, then there's a huge number of their employees who are facing this. And yeah, they are suffering. They might be too afraid to ask for help in a workplace. They might not have the words. Whereas if your workplace is addressed that we're open to this, we're going to provide you with bereavement leave because we think you deserve bereavement and not sick leave. We're going to have this suite of content that whenever you need to access it or your team needs to access it, it's there for you. And you know what? We're going to have a panel discussion and bring this out of the shadows too. And we're going to announce all of these changes to benefit you as an employee because we value you. And we've had nothing but amazing feedback for that program now. So really proud of how quickly that's growing and the impact that that's actually having in those communities.
No, that's wonderful. And you mentioned legislation. I know you've got like a lobbying arm as well. Tell us about that.
I think the lobbying arm might be a board member phrased it really nicely the other day, my inability not to challenge. So again, when we started this research, we noticed in our communities the workplace thread, and I started to look up Fair Work Act, and it made me so angry, so genuinely angry that they were saying that our babies didn't matter, that their lives didn't matter, that there was no legislation in place for a miscarriage prior to 12 weeks. So I rang up Fair Work Australia and asked them what we needed to do, and they pretty much laughed at me down the phone and said, you can't just change the law, that's like government, And then we slowly but surely started to put a case of support together. We've ran collaborative research projects with the University of Sydney, we did our own research as well. We used HR experts to look at existing EBAs that were out there, legislation in other countries around this, very little actually. And then we started to work with government on addressing this issue. We've met with several AGs. Then we were really lucky last year, Julian Simmonds, who's an MP in Queensland, he reached out to us because he saw an article that I'd done with the Courier Mail, and he'd had his own personal journey. And that was a tipping point, right? Because he truly understood the need for this. So therefore, he has spent since October last year, driving this internally at Parliament for us and with us at meetings. And he's really helped this to become an issue they need to face up to. And in June this year, we had the bill tabled in Parliament. So
wow.
Hopefully will be debated this year. So amazing, incredible, from just discovering that it was a gap to getting to where we are now. It's been a lot of work, but yeah, necessary and needed.
But absolutely. I mean, so how long did that whole journey take? Like from you having that anger, which gives you the energy to action, to now?
3 years. However, and I want to make clear as well, I had the anger, but what helped with this change was really engaging lots of different stakeholders. So we've have an incredible team, an incredible board, but other people who might not be on our board but understand the need for this, and they might volunteer their skills. So PwC social impact team helped us with some of this, Dandelion Partners, lots of different organisations have offered some skilled volunteering to help us really strengthen and evidence-base that case for support to government. And then when we did meet with Michaelia Cash, who's the current AG in Australia, we were commended for having such a strong case of evidence as to why this was needed. We'd done such an amount of research. So that was something for all of the Pink Elephants community to be really proud of as well.
No, that's wonderful. Like you must be like super proud in terms of, like you say, from an idea to where it is now, and it feels like it's really. So how many? So you said 31,000 people use your content, use your support network.
This year we've had 36,000.
36,000. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. Wow. We've got around 7,000 in our online communities, online, which is separate to the website as well. So yeah, phenomenal number of people that we're starting to reach now. We really saw that impact grow in 2020, the COVID year. So we are a digital first organisation that we provide our support online. And I think that COVID exacerbated the poor mental health outcomes for our community, because imagine losing your baby during a global pandemic. You can't take your partner with you to a scan. You can't take your partner to hospital with you.
Golly.
And then you return home to isolation where you can't have your loved ones or your family offer you support. So the only place they could literally turn to was us. So we had a 63% increase last year.
Oh my God,
which was huge.
Huge. So that's really helped accelerate your services. You mentioned other countries. So Pink Elephant at the moment is Australia only, or do you support people overseas?
We support overseas as well. It's not intentional. It's because there really isn't very much overseas as well. The UK has some great organisations. The UK has Tommy's, Cradle Project, and they seem to be leap years ahead, which is really heartwarming for me, being originally from England. I'm like, look at us go. In the States, it's very disparate. It literally is state-based in America. It's almost like a postcode lottery where you may or may not get support. So we have about 27% of our traffic actually comes from overseas at the moment, and we don't turn people away. We do offer phone support, and we can't offer that outside of Australia. So that's the only kind of support network that we can't extend. But the rest, in terms of our content, our online communities, that's all it is. Yeah, there is global reach there.
That's wonderful, and it's for, and the support is for the women who's gone through it, but also the men, like the fathers. Do you offer support for fathers?
So again, we knew early on that partners grieve too, not only just from personal experience, but then from looking at research that's out there. So there's Dr. Kate Obst from the University of Adelaide has recently published some research around how partners grieve too, from a miscarriage. So we've kind of taken a lot of research as well, and we know that they need to be provided more validation, that a lot of men or partners have their loss minimized for them. That people will make that common mistake of going, how's your wife doing, or how's your girlfriend doing? And actually, instead of asking, how are you doing, like, how does this impact you? So we have a partner resource on our website We at this stage don't have communities for partners, but that's purely down to our capacity. So we still are a young organisation in that we're only 5.5 years old. And as much as I want to just jump on something and set something up straight away, with time, you kind of start to realise what you genuinely have capacity for and where you need to focus for now.
Yes.
And that's something that we would really, really like to welcome government support around. Moving out to the partner space as well, more than what we are.
Yeah, well, you've done wonderful work. Where can people find out more about you and Pink Elephant and join the mission? Because this is something that affects 1 in 4 of us. So there's clearly a lot of people who are touched by this loss.
Yeah, sure. You can head to pinkelephants.org.au and you can find all of our support materials on our website there. You can also find us on social channels. So Facebook and Instagram is at Pink Elephants Support, and the same on LinkedIn as well. You can find us all there. And feel free, if there's anything in particular you'd like to reach out to us about, contact@pinkelephantsupport.com is a general email that you can send an email and we can help with what you need help with.
That's wonderful. Where did the pink elephant, that name, come from?
No, I know it sounds very strange, right? And we've had some interesting people. So when we were in setup stage, so Gabby co-founded Pink Elephants with me, and we were like back and forward with names and thinking about what this can be. And we knew that we wanted to be a circle of support. We knew that women needed that behind them. And we identified then that within the elephant community, if a mother elephant loses her baby, the other elephants form a physical circle of support around her. And we found that story and we were just like, that's it. That's what we are. We are that circle of support. So it became the Pink Elephants Support Network.
That's wonderful. Well, let me acknowledge you, Sam, for like the tremendous work you've done, and I think you really do demonstrate that on the other side of adversity is growth. So while you were going through your own terrible, adverse situation, you didn't realize that was the precursor for what you're doing now. So well done, and I look forward to seeing how you develop and how you grow that community. It's very needed, and congratulations on everything you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to connect in as well and work with you guys. I'm really grateful.
My pleasure. And thank you everyone for listening. See you next time. Bye now.
Thank you.